How to be a better playmaker in basketball. I'm Tony. Welcome back to Streetball Strategies.
Motives are treacherous. There's a thin line between pain and what pleasure is. And on that thin line is me leaving them breathless. Make them aware it's their moment of reckoning. Used to be less of a wreck, now I'm reckless. I'm the best and I still get the best of them. Hold up.
Today we're talking about how to be a better playmaker on the court. Now this is a general question, so it's going to get a general answer. And right up front we need to address as to what we're talking about, what we mean by playmaker. Because a lot of times I find players have a narrow mindset when they think about playmaking. For instance, some players think that being a playmaker means scoring on the play. Like that's the only definition. So if you make the play, that means you have to score in order to make the play. Some players look at it as like a quarterback kind of position. So in basketball, that would be the point guard. Whoever passes you the ball makes the pass to get the score. The passer would be the playmaker. Or maybe there's some players who kind of more ancillary and they think like, okay, the person who sets the pick to get the shooter open is the playmaker on a given play. But to me, the way I look at it is the playmaker is the person, the player that makes the biggest contribution, like is the most central to making whatever play work on a given possession. Ideally, all of the teammates would be equally responsible for making that play happen, but we all know that's not really realistic. Especially in basketball, there's usually a single player on a given play who's has the majority of the responsibility, the reason of why a play was able to work. And that player can change from play to play, like depending on how the defense is playing you, how the defense adjusts, and then how you need to adjust to the defense. Whoever's most important on a given play can change from play to play. It's not necessarily the shooter or the scorer. It can change depending on like what's needed most in a given play. So that being established, let's talk about how you can become better at being a playmaker. There's three general points that I want to make when it goes towards being a better playmaker. The first being your awareness. And the more comprehensive your awareness is, the better. The more you're going to be able to make plays, the better plays, the more efficient plays you're going to be able to make, the more comprehension you have. So ideally that would include past, present, and future. So you know what happened prior to right now, what led to what's happening right now, that calls for what's needed in a given play. The more you understand how you got here now, the better you'll be able to, choose what play to make right now, how and why. The better you understand that, the better you're going to be able to execute and the better results you're going to get over time. Also, the better awareness you have of the future, like what's going to happen if you make this play, what could happen, like what you're trying to make happen, what your goals are, and also like if you mess up on this play, what are the possible outcomes of that mistake. If you're more of a beginner and like that's too much to ask of you understandably at this point, then just focus on the here and now, to be present in the present moment, the present play. Understand what's going on, understand how and why, right? And understand what you're trying to achieve. That should not be too much to ask for any player. The second point I want to make is about being able to execute on a given play. And it's more than just running a given play. Are you able to change? Are you able to improvise if needed? Because, for instance, if you're running just a basic pick and roll and you have the ball, right, you're the ball handler, you're trying to use a screen to get yourself open for, say, a three-point shot, right? What happens if your defender, as you're moving towards the screen, sees that screen coming and decides to either hedge or go under? Because the play is, like you drew it up, like the play would be to run your defender squarely into that screen and then you lose your defender and you're open for that shot. What happens if that doesn't happen and your defender goes under or over and now you have to improvise what you're going to do next? Are you able to do that? That kind of general example applies to everybody on the court, all of your teammates. Can they adjust to whatever the defense does? Because the defense isn't just going to let you run your play the way you want to run it, right? A lot of times, especially smarter defense, they're going to see and understand at least a little bit of what you're trying to do, and they're going to try to interrupt it. That's their job. So when they do that, can you then adjust to their adjustment? So the way you get to having that ability to execute and adjust if needed is in practice, right? So when you're practicing, obviously you would run the play the way you expect it to happen in a game. Like ideally the perfect scenario, you would run it that way. But you would also build in contingencies for like, okay, what if the defense does this? Then I do this, right? You have to have like, at least in your mind, you have to have an idea of how you're going to adjust if need be. Because if you can only run the play the way it's supposed to be perfectly run, then once the defense adjusts to that play, I mean, assuming that you run it multiple times, then they're eventually gonna render that play useless. So can you improvise? Can you figure out in the moment how to adjust and do the things that are necessary to continue that play and make it successful? Have a good understanding of what the play is and how and why it works, but also understand that you need to be able to change whenever the defense changes. In a way wherein as the defense changes, because like the defense has a play of their own, like they have a strategy of their own, but when you run a play that they then have to compensate for, in doing so that defense is going to open itself up and show some kind of weakness somewhere in that change of their defensive philosophy and strategy. Can you recognize that change? Can you recognize that weakness, and then can you take advantage of it? Everybody on the team can find openings and weaknesses on the defense as it changes to try to compensate for what you're doing when you're running your play. The third general point about how to be a better playmaker to me is confidence. Having the confidence, the right amount of confidence to make whatever play is needed in a given situation. I usually find that players fall into one of two extremes when it comes to confidence and playmaking, which is, well, you'll notice the most because it's sort of the most flamboyant, like the most noticeable, is that players will say, I want to be the playmaker, I want to, give me the ball, let me make the play, and I'll carry the team to, success in that way. And that makes sense because when you think playmaker, right, you kind of think like hero of the team. I'm the playmaker, I make the play. It's because of me that the play was successful. So a lot of players will kind of insist on being the playmaker in a given possession. Now, not always, but often, players who insist on being the playmaker do that from a position of overconfidence, of false confidence, right? They want the accolades of being the hero of the team on a given play. The question is, do they actually deserve to be in that position? Have they earned it? Sometimes yes, but a lot of times it's more of like, I want the glory when things go well, so I want to be named the playmaker on a given possession. But what happens if things don't go well? What if the ball's in their hands, it's on them to make the play, and they make a major mistake? Like, it's easy to be a playmaker, at the beginning of a game when the game's not on the line. But what happens at the end of a game? Like, whose hands do you put the ball in to make the play? Like, who do you depend on to be the playmaker for your team? Like, do they deserve to be the playmaker, whoever it may be? Or is there someone else who actually deserves it more because they've actually put in more work and have a better, an actual earned confidence to be the playmaker? And then the other extreme are players who kind of shy away from that. Like, they don't want to be associated with being the playmaker, right? Because it's a lot of responsibility. If you mess up, right, your teammates can very well hold you responsible for what went wrong. And a lot of players, they don't want to be the reason why your team lost a game. If it's the end of the game and it's time to make the right play at the right time, a lot of players will shy away from that because they don't want to be the person who messed up for the rest of their team. So how do you find that balance between like overconfidence and having like anxiety about making a bad, wrong mistake to end the game and be the reason that your team lost? Well, like I said, it's all about earning your confidence, right? Having the right amount of confidence, and the right amount being there because you actually earned that confidence through whatever means necessary. I say like practice should be from where the majority of your confidence comes from, especially as a newer player, a beginner kind of player. if you don't have experience out here in games and taking last-second shots or making last-minute plays to try to determine whether or not your team's going to win or lose a game, if you don't have that experience yet, the way your confidence is earned is in practice. Did you put in the work beforehand, before you got out here on the court, to actually earn the confidence to make the right play at the right time? And hearkening back to awareness, right? Are you aware of what play should be run? Who should be like the person that's the playmaker on that play? Do you have that awareness? Because if you run the wrong play for the wrong person in the wrong circumstance, obviously you're probably not going to be successful in that endeavor. And then do you have the confidence that you can execute whatever's needed on that play to help your team be successful? And the way you get that confidence, especially as a newer player, is through practice. Putting in whatever work you can to simulate for end of game playmaking needed experience. Because if you don't actually have the experience yet, all you can do is simulate it in game. Did you do that? Did you really try? Did you really run through your mind in all kinds of variations of, okay, if I do this in this circumstance and the defense does this, then I need to do this. Have you gone through that in your mind prior to this moment, prior to this play? Did you practice that? Did you really try? Did you really think it through? And then did you drill and practice and practice? Because if you didn't, then you're probably not going to have the kind of confidence you need to execute in that kind of a situation. And if you're an intermediate or advanced player, then you already know what it takes in a given situation under given circumstances. You already know what you need to do, what you can do, what you should do, right? You should have a comprehensive knowledge of all of that. So your confidence comes from having gone through that process in game, in competition. It's more of a matter of, are you overconfident? Do you overestimate your experience that you have, and thus you're making the wrong decisions based on your overconfidence? You need to be real with yourself. What's needed in a given situation, and what can you do in that situation to maximize your opportunity, your possibility to being successful in a given play? That's generally how to be a better playmaker in basketball. You put all three of those elements together: awareness, the ability to execute, and having the confidence to execute. Once you're able to figure out all those three pieces sort of individually and then how to put them together, playmaking is going to become so much more natural to you as a player. Also, give it time. If you're newer, younger, more of a beginner player, give yourself time, give yourself leniency to learn this. Some players have the natural talent and ability to be playmakers right from the beginning, and they can really put in a lot of work to sort of exploit that and take advantage of that. But if you don't have that ingrained sort of talent and ability to be a good playmaker from the beginning of your playing career, then give yourself time to build up to it. It's the same thing as building any other skill in basketball. It's a skill that people don't really look at it as being a skill, but it's something that you have to earn over time like anything else. And like anything else, you have to try, fail, resolve to improve, and then repeat. And doing that's going to take time, it's going to take repetition. And I can't emphasize enough, don't only depend on getting better in game, in competition. Yes, obviously, you're going to make mistakes in competition under fire and learn from those mistakes over time. But to go along with that, to supplement that, you want to have as much practice doing that away from competition, by yourself or with your teammates in a non-competitive, when the game's not on the line. The more you can practice that away from competition, the faster, better you're going to get at it. Because if you don't have to make those mistakes in game against competition, why would you? Why should you? If you can fix problems before they happen when they count in competition by practicing them, studying them, resolving them before competition starts, so that in competition you can make the right decisions to make the right plays, then why put yourself through the time through the energy, through the repetitives of like losing and making mistakes in actual competition, when you can take care of that, a lot of it beforehand in practice. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, if you found it helpful, if you think it is going to help you be a better playmaker in basketball, then please subscribe to the channel. Comment down below and let me know, what does being a good playmaker mean to you? That definition of that term, being a good playmaker, what does it mean to you? What have you done to increase your ability to be a playmaker? But before you comment, make sure you hit that thanks button down below, because when you hit that thanks button, not only does it highlight every comment you make, making it stand out from all the other comments, but it also directly supports the channel. So for anyone that does hit that thanks button, know I genuinely appreciate it. As always, like, share, comment like I said. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified whenever any video goes live on this channel. And until then, see you guys next week.
Too competitive. Had a wrestling match with Mount Everest. Leaving this prey, I could chase off the predators. You can't run with me, little boy, you too delicate. Hold up! I'm feeling a little bit dangerous, and they looking a little bit anxious. If I'm laughing while I'm twiddling my fingers, it's only a warning that you can't just walk up to me, talking to me. Ain't no telling my reaction, I could black out. This is such an experience, and it's always one I wanna max out.